We're going to go over authentic materials. We're going to go back to the concept and types of materials that, that we have been using. And this is probably not a new concept to many of you. The talk about authentic material has been going on forever, as long as I can remember. And there's even websites that have, oh, here I have a collection of authentic materials. So we're going to go into that and the types. Then we're going to talk about selecting and preparing authentic materials. We're going to go into distinguishing between scripted and unscripted materials. Then we're going to go a retake on authentic materials when we talk about corpora. So of all of these materials, which ones are the ones that I can use? Are there any in my collection that I can use? We go into how to prepare those materials so that they are useful for the lessons that we saw my colleagues create. And then I'm going to give you 3 examples of, if we have time, 2 or 3, of using these authentic materials to create classroom activities. First, let's have a little discussion about what is authentic and non-authentic materials. Okay? So we know print, video, and audio materials. So what is the difference between an authentic material and a non-authentic material? And we've seen tons of this. And non-authentic materials, of course, are designed to look like authentic materials, and we see them in the textbooks everywhere. They really look like authentic, but they're not. They're not intended to be used by native speakers. That's the main difference, okay? They look like it, but native speakers don't, that's not the intent, so they're not really authentic. Authentic materials are used in daily lives. For example, a menu from a restaurant. Can anybody give examples of what authentic materials you have?
Like newspapers.
A newspaper is an authentic material. So again, created but not specifically for teaching. And in this I quote the commercial because I'm going to show you how I create activities from a commercial. The commercial is created but is intended to be used by native speakers, and if the actors are pretty good, they can portray very close to authentic conversation. And we will see that's one of the examples that we're going to see. And of course, they're intended to be used by native speakers. Okay, so why do we need to use these authentic materials? What are the benefits? It exposes learners to the same language as the native speakers, which is what we want. Okay, so when they go out there and they want to use the language, this is what native speakers see, this is what you need to see. Okay, you're not going to have your textbook. Okay, it gives the learners opportunity to observe, analyze vocabulary and grammar and pragmatics and cultural aspects of the language, you know, because it's being used by native speakers, it's produced for native speakers for their consumption, then we see all these real things about the language. It also gives authenticity. They are authentic materials. They give authenticity to the way the learner interprets the language. It's no longer the learning trying to interpret the language from something that was created and was never used or intended to be used by native speakers. So that gives it another dimension. The tasks that we design are conducive to language learning in terms of it's real life, it's what really happens. Offers immediate proof that the language is used for real life by real people. And this is what the students always demand. What do I want? I mean, I want to see what happens. What do native speakers do? You know? So this is it. This is what they do. Let's look at them, okay? And all of these things have a positive effect on the motivation of the students, and we know there's tons of literature that talk about motivation and learning and how motivation is crucial to learning. So this adds to that. That being said, again, we look at a bunch of authentic materials. Any of these can be used to make activities for the classroom. Focus the attention on the phone messages, radio broadcasts, podcasts, ebooks, movies, videos and DVDs, television programs, recorded interviews, because those are the ones where you have the spoken language, which is what we are talking about. And the other ones, we've been collecting those and we've been using those. I can, for example, attest to receipts like this, for example, and you can teach numbers. You give them each one a receipt, and then, okay, how much did you spend? Talk about what did you spend on your receipt. For example, tickets, no longer because they're now electronic, but the tickets, any type of tickets, I remember giving tickets to my students and having them talk to each other about where did they go, what time was their trip, and that kind of thing, from information from these real tickets. So if you go on the internet and you type identity documents, you get things like this. So I don't know if it's a real person, but it looks real. You know, I don't know if anybody. There's the number, there's the date, and everything. There's tons. You can have. There's so many for different people that you can have. Give each one to your student, and then do activities from those. Yeah. Okay. So which ones have you used? Anybody can give us any examples?
For things like Arabic, and I take it also Spanish, but for Arabic, I mean, there's a few publications in Houston that are written in Arabic for the immigrant community, and I try to find simple advertisements in there for first year, or maybe more of a complicated article if it's intermediate, and it helps for the students to realize that this was written by people who live here in your community.
There you go. Intended for native speakers. Yes.
Yeah. In our class, it's a must to show them a real format for formal letters, interviews, blogs, brochures, etc. So we need to collect a lot of that information, real information, so they know the format and they can infer the format.
Right. For a long time, we've been trying to move away from the, as Lucilis was talking about, the restriction of the textbook. We've been wanting to, get rid of it, but it's hard. It is hard. And all of these are examples of we want to do something else, and the textbooks are restricting. We know what it means, we know the difference, okay? Now, yesterday, we all heard how these materials can be used to teach interactional practices. Okay, so it's not easy, you're going to see, to find materials that you can use to teach interactional practices. So let's go back to our list and look in there to see from that list, are there any that can be used to teach communicative practices? What do we need? What do these materials need to be in order to be able to be good? Okay, a telephone conversation could be an example. We have two people speaking. Hopefully native speakers record the conversation between the two. Recording multimedia conversations. I have a screen. Get a screenshot of a message.
They listen, and how can we make it interactive in that case? If they listen.
No. The actual material is created interactively by native speakers. Okay, not them. Okay, YouTube conversations, and you talked about that. We're going to look at some of the conversations we find online and see which ones are good and which ones are not. Snapchats, okay, conversations in different settings. If I can record a conversation in an office, neighbors talking together, okay, in a coffee shop, family conversations, classmates conversations, and medical and business. I have those two separate because they're really hard to get. People don't like to be recorded when they're seeing the doctor. And the doctors don't like to be recorded when they're looking at their patients. Even though we're going to hear from Liang, who was able to get some. Yeah.
Now, can I say something? Because it was very interesting. Now I remember that we were talking about, in my class, we were talking about the natural disasters, the environment and everything, and I had the opportunity to have my family at home when we were living in, I wasn't, but my family, in Mexico City, which was the big earthquake.
You recorded them?
And I asked them to talk to me about that experience.
That's a conversation that happened between native speakers. Yes, it works. Now, what do we do with it? How do we use it in the classroom? We're going to see. And then, of course, business. Business people don't like to be recorded at all. In their business deals, no. It's secret, no. But we were able to find some for my business class. Was able to record my brother's business. Okay, so we find all these conversations. Let's look at some examples of them and see if we can distinguish which ones are scripted and which ones are unscripted. We're looking for the unscripted conversation, okay? So let's look at some examples. Okay, so we're going to hear to the first sample. Look at your handout, and this is the first sample. And this is very typical of what we see.
But usually not over here. So, you're from Italy? Yes, I am. And you're traveling to Tokyo? Yes. Well, welcome to Top Notch Travel Agency. Let me introduce you to my staff, then we'll talk about Tokyo. Marie,
Okay.
I'd like you to meet...
George, yo, I'm ready.
Oh, you know him.
Okay, scripted or unscripted? Okay, let's look at the next one. And this one doesn't have video, it's just audio. So let's see.
It's Mark. Mark, I'm Bill. Glad to meet you.
Yeah. So where are you from?
I'm from Houston, Texas.
Ah, I'm from Southern California.
There must be a lot of cute girls over there, huh?
Oh yeah, but most of them are hoochies.
So what year are you?
I'm a freshman.
This is
Scripted or unscripted? Okay, next one. Ready?
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I don't even need to play it anymore.
English?
A little.
Okay. Last one.
Hello and welcome to this month's Master English Conversation Masterclass video lesson. Okay, so we're starting a new set of lessons, and Richard, my friend Richard here, he's joining me. He lives very close to me, a good friend of mine, and so I'll let him introduce himself. But for this month, it should be an interesting lesson.
Yes. Hello, hello. My name is Richard Richardson. I am from America, from New York City, 26 years old, and I live in Japan. Nice to meet you.
Well, before we get into anything
So
in
scripted
particular
or
about the lesson,
unscripted?
how have you been?
Okay, which one would you eliminate and which one would you keep to use for interactional, to teach interactional practices? Number 3, the last one. Any other? You eliminate the first 3. You keep number 1. It's kind of, but there's something missing, right?
It's weird, but
Still. Okay, let's look at what makes a good one. What makes a good one? It needs to sound natural or unnatural. It needs to sound natural. So what is it? What does it mean it sounds natural? Look at the fluency and the speed of delivery. Okay, remember the textbook? Hello, how are you? I'm good. Okay, the enunciation, all of the words completely enunciate, all the endings, you can hear them. Okay, that's not how it happens in real life. The accent, totally neutral, no accent. Exchange of information, there was exchange of information, yes, without social interaction. So, hello, how are you? I am good. Social interaction, really? No, okay? The affective component. And these are the things that we don't see. These are the unspoken rules that we were talking about. Interlocutors making connections. You need to see them making connections, and we need to show our students how they need to be making these connections, okay? And expressions of interactivity, okay? Now, again, we have some of these online that we can use, and there I just found you an example after lots of trying, but I did find at least one that we can keep that shows that. You can also create your own. Create your own corporal video or audio recordings of conversations. Again, it's best if we have the video, but if we also have just the audio, it's still useful. We can use it. How do we get that? Many of our presenters yesterday told you how they were getting these recordings. Recording students' conversation with native speakers. Make it an assignment. You need to go out and find a native speaker and have a conversation with them, open, okay? Just record it, okay? And be looking for certain things. Or just, if it's just general use for you, it doesn't have to be an assignment. It could be, but then, you know, don't give them any rules. Just go ahead and have a conversation with the native speakers. Set up a conversation between two native speakers, two of your friends. Have them sit down and have a conversation and record it. Mariam was an example where she brought a friend who speaks French with another person, and they didn't know each other, and she brought them here, and she recorded them having a conversation. First meeting for the first time. It was two native speakers meeting. And she did a ton of setups. You did a lunch with a student, so all of these are good to use. And then the recorded conversations during study abroad. Naoko's going to talk to you about how she went on collecting these conversations between friends and their conversation partners abroad, and also family homestays. What are the problems that we can face with when you have all of these conversations or recordings in order to use them? Yes?
And one of the things is that they have all those like words and expressions that students are not aware of, and there's just sometimes too many for the purpose.
What can you do?
If it's like a minor number, you can give like, you know, vocabulary type things for them to be able to, I mean, if it's a critical words, but other than that, like, sort of
if that's the focus of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So the idea is, yes, you can use them, you just have to focus. What is it that I am looking for here? And look for that special thing. Anything else, yes, they can have an idea of what's being said, but if it's not the focus of what I'm trying to teach, it's okay. I focus on what I want and what I need for my lesson, okay?
And then I'm sorry, just gonna add, just to go back to this, is that a lot of times, again, we shy away from a lot of material that we find because we think they're too hard. But I think we need, as our job, part of the job, to realize that the material that I have, how can I adapt it for different levels? So one, we have done that a lot. We've been trying to do that a lot for the past few years, that we do have one material, but then it can be used for the first semester as well as the fourth semester. How do we make modifications so the complexity is not really in the material itself, but in the task that we design for the students? Yeah. And that's something that we could keep in mind.
That's really important. What task are we asking them to do? It could be any material. It could be anything, a newspaper. But what is the task? Okay, so the task can be up to their level, and then you can use the authentic material. Now, using a corpus, for example, the one that we are trying to put together here at the center. Let's look at that one for a little bit. And in there, we're going to find conversations between students and native speakers that we have recorded, conversations between native speakers. The business recordings are not there yet, but they are almost ready to upload, so they will be there, the ones that I collected. Student conversations with business executives. The medical, we have doctor-patient mock interviews by native speakers. It's a mock interview, but it's still good because it's by native speakers. The real doctor-patient conversations that she was able to get, and 14 recorded in local physician's office and 7 recorded in China. What I'm going to pass to you is an example of the kind of permission that you need to get from people who are doing recordings that you're going to be using the recordings for. So this is one of the permission slips that we give the people to sign. In another conference, I heard that you can also have them record the permission. So apparently you can do that too. So before they start recording, okay, I want to get your permission to be able to use this for my classes. Are you okay? Yes. Continue. And then it's less. They don't have to sign. You know, sometimes that's kind of hard. So I think you've seen the website, but I want to go and explore it a little bit with you. So you see what we have so far. If you go to the site and click on the language data. So now that we have these materials, what do we need to do to this thing in order to be able to use it in the classroom? it needs to be, we choose the appropriate useful recording. So we're going to teach this. This is the recording that's going to help me do that, okay? If eventually when we get it in our website, you will be able to click it from there, okay? Choose a section that displays the content to be learned. In this section, again, because we are working with authentic materials and we're worried about the level and the vocabulary, are they going to understand? This is very important because we need to focus. What is it that we want? We need to, what am I teaching? So this is going to be useful in this part. So you don't have to show them the whole thing. You can show them just the little piece or the exchanges that where what you want to teach is happening, okay? And then you need to transcribe. There's two types of transcriptions that I have been doing depending on what you want, what I want to teach. Vocabulary, grammar, and syntax, I just do a simple transcription, just the names. You're gonna see some examples. And another one will be the kind that Kevin showed you, which is a transcription that needs to have the interactional features visible in some way. So he used some notations to do that. Now let's look at this handout that has actually a transcription that has some of those notations for you, and we're going to explore it in more detail. This is the one that I've been promising, that it's a commercial, but we're going to see it. You have the translation of the conversation. There is a commercial, so it was created. It's meant for native speaker consumption, and the speakers in the commercial, they have a lot of features that portrays the conversation as almost natural. So you look at the transcription and how it's done. I'm going to recommend that you use Elan. Elan is a software. It's out there. It's free to download. And what it does, if you open your piece, your audio or video conversation within Elan, Elan is going to allow you to slow down the conversation so you have time to type. Sometimes they speak very fast and you can't understand what they're saying. This is very useful.
Entonces, Martín, Rogelio, oye, vi a Sofi. Qué grande está. Crecen rápido.
Mira, ¿cómo va el negocio?
Bien, bien. Nos estamos mudando.
¿En serio? ¿Sabes que estoy vendiendo un montacargas?
¿Te interesa? ¿Cuánto pides?
Para ti. Al costo. ¿Tienes los reales?
Puede ser.
Let's look at one of the activities that I designed for that. If you see the list on page 2, I have some items that this transcription can be used to teach some of these things. Present tense, commands, present progressive, object pronouns. There's a variety of object pronouns in there, and you can use it. Greetings, of course, how they greet each other. It's like a tap on the shoulder.
They didn't say hola.
No.
¿Cómo estás?
They said the names,
Yeah.
you know. Opening and expanding, so they start opening the conversation and he talks about his daughter and then he goes, oh, I have a business for you. So transitioning into something else. And vocabulary, of course, variation and pronunciation. This variety is from Venezuela, so the Venezuelan accent is clearly in there. Okay, so I would have the students listen to the conversation, and for this one, I am teaching some features of conversation for, the pronouns. Yeah. So I take out the pronouns, and if you go back to the next page, there's a table that they fill in with the pronouns, and it's mainly placement of the pronouns in different types of verbs. So they see the examples in a present tense, in a command, the different places of the pronoun, and they hopefully will infer the rule, and so on. So that's one type. Mm-hmm.
How many times do you play? Do you play once or 2 times the conversation?
Okay, let's look at the task. If you look at the script and what the task is, how many blanks are in there? 5. So I only need them to be able to hear those 5 items and feeling. If they do that with 1, it's fine. The rest, what they need to know, this is a commercial. Oh, I'm sorry. This is 2 people in a theater. One is proposing a business to another, and the wife doesn't like it because they're talking business, and so on. Where is the place of these things in my language class? The total language package. I will continue to teach vocabulary, grammar, reading and writing in my listening and speaking, and also I need to add unscripted spoken conversations to learn communicative practice. This is what has been missing, the piece that was missing. And this is how I would use the materials in order to teach this type of things. What do I need? I probably need some redirecting of the grammar and vocabulary. You see, there's different things associated with communicative practices. And I need also authentic conversational materials, which are so hard to get. But now with the corpora, with what we're trying to do here, we're trying to get these materials so that you can use them and make them as ready as possible so that you can use them to teach in your classes. Cristina?
The most recent textbook that I've been checking and searching, they provide the videos, right? And the last one, actually the one that I'm using at the moment, they're very proud, publishers are proud to underline that the videos are not scripted. So there are actors and there are a prompt given to the actors. So the 2 persons, they didn't memorize the script. So they are actually acting naturally according to the prompt that is given to them. Mm-hmm. So how much should I use it? I mean, can I rely on those videos, or should I take some distance from them?
There was an example of a commercial where the conversation looked unnatural. Depending on what is it that you want to teach? It looks natural because I gave you the elements of a natural conversation. So put it against that checklist and see what's missing, what's in there that makes it authentic or close to authentic, or how close depending on the task. Again, it all goes down to the task that you want them to do.
For Italian, it's difficult to find corpora, mostly in terms of audio and videos. There's some in the writing forms, there's some transcriptions, but it's so much better, giving the students the opportunity of, checking the body language, for example, even the intonation of the voice, the accents. Mm-hmm. And so the script by itself doesn't offer all these options. And these videos they have been useful for me, but as I said, sometimes since we are focusing on not the authentic data, the real conversation, the real things, that is not real. It's based on intuition of the actors more than on, more a real spontaneous.
But I think Amara is right that we don't have to have everything supernatural at the same time in conversation. I mean, I've been using, for Portuguese, it's very hard to find authentic material. And I've been using a lot of movie excerpts, for instance. They're scripted, but if the actors are good, yes, they act out in the way that you get really close to it.
But I think that we shouldn't conflate scripted with inauthentic, because if it's a movie from the target culture that was intended for native speakers to enjoy, exactly. So it's authentic.
It's authentic. Yeah.
Even if it's scripted, it's authentic.
A natural conversation. Right, but it's
we have 2 poles. We have scripted and unscripted, and then we have the gray area where a lot of the scenes fall.
Okay, if we are not talking about, for instance, overlaps that usually do not occur in a movie, right? Yes. Because they are scripted, there are very few overlaps. Yes.
But if we're not focusing on that, we are focusing on other aspects,
that's okay. I mean, that's fine.
I just wanted to add a point, I think, to connect. Actually, I think this is a very interesting topic in terms of materials and pedagogical techniques, practices, procedures. There's no taboo in terms of what you can use in either one of these. Anything you can think of is possible. However, I think the issue is that it cannot just be used in a random way. I think that's what sometimes is missing when we have these discussions about either data, spoken written data, or activity. That we say, okay, this is valid, this is valid. Out of context, you don't know whether it's useful or not. It has to be principle. It has to be a principle design behind that, and that's the key issue. And that goes back to the issue of the complexity is not in the text, it's in the task. It's the same idea. It's basically the same. So you can boil it down to that simple principle. And that goes for text as well. So of course you can use any kind of text you want. Yeah, I think what Christina was after is the fact that, and I think the question came up about textbooks, is that in general the textbooks, if I just want to give a random number, I would say 95% of the textbook data is totally inauthentic to the point that you tip the balance in a direction in which you have to counterbalance with what Christina was trying to say. That doesn't mean you have to go in the opposite direction totally. What's the right balance? I don't know. That's something you have to go figure out and experience.
Everything in moderation and always some kind of principle guiding what the decisions that you make.
That's the point.
You need to be careful about how you're worried about them. Maybe it's too complex. But I also keep in mind thinking about my students going to the study abroad after 1 year. Will people out there, how much are they willing to modify and simplify and repeat for them? So to what extent can I prepare them for the real world? And it's true that it might feel overwhelming, but in the reality is that it has been proven based on my experience that once they go, they are ready for the real deal and they know how to deal with that kind of language and what to look for to get to really live in that country. Not only just, it's not at that moment a comprehension or just filling some blanks or just a grade, it's really that I have to live and I have to figure out a way to get my phone and I need to get my plan and I need to figure it out. So that's the other side that also the reality of the language course, my hope is that for my students to be able to use the Thai language as a tool to communicate and to live in a foreign country.
Definitely. I was just thinking of having the balance of really preparing them and also facilitating the language for them so that it will be quite pleasant in class, so that they will not be too frustrated.
I think it will be pleasant. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm not saying I like to torture them, but there needs to be some sort of discomfort. I mean, learning has to have a certain level of, obviously not to the extreme where like I have one student left in my classroom, right? But as a person who more than once failed at trying to learn a third and fourth language, to coddle as well, right? To purify the language and clean it and make. I mean, there needs to be a certain element of. I mean, we all know that, right? We all, right? So striking that balance.
We need to compare the caliber of students that you have at Rice and other students have, other universities have.
Right. I mean, I made them uncomfortable at U of H, and I made them uncomfortable at Rice, and I made them uncomfortable at junior high. I mean,
and learning is hard. Learning is work. So doing work, there's a certain type of discomfort, like we were saying at the beginning of this. It's looking at the language like something that you study. Okay. Yes, you can enjoy it but that's it's a subject of study. So why can they be uncomfortable learning engineering or learning mathematics and not uncomfortable learning a language?
Moreover, but making a student uncomfortable doesn't exclude, praise and positive reinforcement. And it makes it all the more meaningful because, it's much better to, maybe fail or have a very hard time doing something that's not a Mickey Mouse subject or the real deal, than to be like, oh, I did this so well, and it's basically all spoon-fed.
It's more rewarding.
More rewarding.
Look at the Olympics.
But you need to make
These people, they
I
train.
think that what you're all saying is that we also need to make sure that that's what we've been trying to. You guide them enough, that you give them enough guidance. So again, we are not saying go give them this and go figure it out and it's hard and you have to deal with it. It's like, how can I be a good guide and how by creating the right activities for these first semester students, I know how to take them there. How can I just create those step by step, because then it comes back to me, so then the learning can happen. that is the key point, because a lot of times it could be, okay, so I'm going to give them that recording and then let's just see what happens. No, this is really not what we're saying. It's really the right guidance that is behind it.
It's the student-centered classroom where you are a coach. Okay, I'm very happy that this generated all these conversations, but I need to leave the stage for my colleagues, so thank you so much.